Welcome back to our conversations in the Biohacking Congress. I am so thrilled to be here today having this conversation, especially because as a brain health professional, I am so interested in all the ways we can prevent and we can heal our brain. And that is exactly the conversation we're going to have today. My name is Candy Calderon. I'm the founder of CEO Wellness Club. Welcome, welcome, welcome. How are you and how is Miami treating you?
Thank you, Candy. Yes, fabulous. Yeah, of course. It's lovely to be here in Miami.
I love that you're here. And for those of you who are not, if you're watching this or you're listening to this and it's the first time you are exposed to the work that you're doing, can you walk us through a little bit of who you are and how do you got to do what you're doing right now?
Thank you. Yeah. So, yes, as you said, I'm Sarah Turner. I have a company that does transcranial photobiomodulation. So, yeah, that is a bit of a mouthful. It's a bit of a mouthful.
It is.
But just, it just means transcranial, so it means for the brain or across the head.
Okay.
Photobiomodulation, so photo is light. Bio is kind of biology for the body and modulation. Okay. So we're modulating biology with light and you know, to cut out all the fancy words, it's red light therapy for the brain.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. And why this field exactly? What made you passionate about this field?
Yeah, so my background actually was pharmaceutical research to start with. And then I started to look at things like what affected how pharmaceuticals work in our body and things like charge build up, electrostatic charge, how the body responds to electromagnetic waves. So that's what really got me started looking at, okay, if we can maybe modulate how we interact with electromagnetic frequencies, then potentially we can affect our health, and that changes, you know, how pharmaceuticals work in the body. So the biggest electromagnetic field or wave that has an effect on us as humans, as diurnal mammals, mammals that kind of evolved to be outside, is light.
Yes.
So I started getting involved in structured water technologies, which is very interesting in itself. How does light structure water? But I have a neuroscience background.
Okay.
So really that my main thing is the brain.
Yes.
So, you know, I kind of gravitated more towards how can we actually use light to influence the brain. And I started looking at this maybe 2018 and discovered there were actually people who were doing, you know, there are people who were already researching this. So I was able actually to go and volunteer to do some work on a study looking at a specific long range red light. So we're talking, it was actually 1070 nanometers, and we can go a little bit more detail if you like about, okay, what the wavelengths means in terms of light. But I was involved in doing a trial. Actually, it was dementia and Parkinson's disease. And so I was volunteering. It was a double-blind study. And I could very rapidly see which of the people on the study were getting the sham and which one were getting the active, because people were starting to change their behavior.
Yeah.
So I could really see, okay, I understand that you're on the active treatment, because these people who had, you know, quite severe neurodegeneration were actually engaging more.
Yeah.
You know, they were actually sometimes they were getting angry. You know, there was a response there where people all of a sudden had more responsibility back again. You know, maybe they could, you know, dress themselves, and, you know, it's an adjustment to make, going from dependency to maybe getting a little bit more responsibility back.
Yeah.
But certainly, you know, normal markers like reaction times, some blood biomarkers, people were actually seeing a positive effect just from having light shone onto their heads.
Wow.
I mean, it's a really an amazing concept that you can potentially have an impact on brain disease
Yes.
with targeted light therapy.
Yeah.
So really that's what got me hooked. So I've spent, you know, I've really spent from 2018 to here we are in 2023 trying to work out what is the best way to deliver light, you know, what is the best form to do it, and how can it be accessible?
Yes.
How can it be something that, you know, anyone can order and people can do from home, you know, not something that is only for the elite or you have to do in a clinic?
And I love that you mentioned that, because one of the drawbacks of and the pain points in the biohacking conversation, it's not accessible for people. It's out of touch in terms of financially for people to have even access to that. And we know that a huge part of making the change and healing, the population and making and shifting that narrative is for people to have access. And if all of this is so expensive, how can we make that change? And I know that for creating devices also that we can have at home, and we're going to talk about it in a minute, also works with that access and give that access to people that might not have, thousands of dollars or not even maybe insurance. And that is a huge part of the conversation. And hopefully we address that more and more as we continue to do events like Biohacking Congress. You mentioned something about the double-blind study. And I think it's so important because sometimes we can have what we call placebo effect. And then obviously you know very well about that. And people start using maybe devices that don't have the potency or the quality, and they think they're getting the benefits, but in reality it's not doing anything for them. How can we identify or know that a product it's really what it's saying and the benefits and its quality?
Yes, that is a good point. And I think certainly with some of these like frontier technologies where maybe there isn't so much information available, people need to know where to go to look for these devices. But there is actually a lot of research out there. Even in this field, there are hundreds of studies that show that there is an effect. And with photobiomodulation as a whole, thousands of studies. I have a database with 3,000 studies for different kinds of applications. And so I think basically it's looking at a company that has, that is looking to go through the FDA. It's looking for a company where the research is maybe published on the website. I have to say, as a caveat to that, the FDA has yet to approve any of these light therapy devices for a brain health application. So not my device, not any of the devices that are out there. Currently, we can make a claim for neurodegeneration. And the study that I was just mentioning to you, it's been published, but there needs to be a lot more data before the FDA will give a classification for that. And then after that comes all the other things you mentioned, getting it as an insurance, getting it into the medical system. So it is difficult because at the moment there is no standard that people can look for. All I would say is look for a reputable company and then reach out to that company and kind of ask them what they're doing, ask for the data, ask to see what's been done. But I think, there are certainly in this brain industry, there are quite a few companies, and as far all of the CEOs are readily accessible. Most people are out there talking because they want to get it out. So you can contact all of these people and work out what they're doing. But at the moment, there is no way to say, okay, this is the stamp to say it's gone through all the clinical training, because at the moment that's still ongoing. It really is a new field of exploration.
And but I love that even though there's the process of the approval of the FDA, but there's so many studies and papers out there that we can go and we can do our own due diligence. And I think that's something that I always suggest to people who are wanting to improve and optimize their health, regardless if it is brain health, sleep optimization, any biohacking they want to do, is also do your own due diligence. And that papers are there in your website. There's so many resources, and people need to be accountable and take action when it comes to their health. And sometimes it starts with just doing our own due diligence. And part of that is also why red light? Because obviously light is so important for our healing. We're as human beings, but if we go back to I'm a newbie, I don't know anything about red light or why red light is so important in healing for our body. How can you explain that to us and for people who don't know anything about red light?
Well, you're right. If we kind of go back, you know, we are basically mammals that have evolved with the sun. You know, we have adapted to life on this planet. And if you think about just going back only a few hundred years, you know, where we didn't have electricity and we didn't have access to electric lighting and kind of constant illumination, really our lives have evolved around the sun, you know, for whatever it is, 20,000 years or something. You know, that was our cycle. And so the sun has different wavelengths of light, and wavelength equates to the color. So when we're talking about red, that just means light of a certain wavelength. So in the mornings, for example, the sun looks red. It looks redder. That's because of the angle that the sun is in the sky. We have more of these longer wavelengths of light. And as the sun rises in the sky, we experience the shorter wavelengths, and the UV, the sun sets, we see the sun as red again. So in the morning and in the evenings, this is when we get exposed to red light. So this is the light that's a healing frequency. And so it kind of corresponds to what the body is doing at certain times of day. And it's a fascinating field. It's called circadian biology. So how does our body respond at certain times of day? And certainly it seems our bodies are geared up, you know, in the morning, you know, if we're out in the sun, we see the red light. You know, our bodies kind of initiate a healing reaction. As the sun goes to the middle of the day, we become more energized. We do, you know, foraging behaviors, looking for a mate, you know, all of those things. As the sun goes down, we're kind of getting ready for healing and repairing. So I think that's really why our bodies respond differently to these different wavelengths, because really it's part of our evolution and how we've evolved, you know, our day-night cycle. Of course, we're a little bit dissociated from that because now we live a fairly artificial life in that we control our environment a lot more than we ever have. So we have a lot less exposure to the red frequencies, these long wave frequencies. Unless you're, you know, doing your biohacking and you're seeing it every sunrise and sunset, you're missing a lot of that long wave red light. And also I think that there is an advantage of having very targeted frequencies, because once we've gone down a process of kind of having some kind of degeneration, you know, our body responds quite rapidly to receiving those healing frequencies of light, the red. So red light is like 600 nanometers, and then near infrared, which is just beyond red. We can't see that with our eyes, but we call it near infrared. That's, you know, above 700. So a lot of these devices are taking very specific frequencies, usually 600, 810, 850, 830, and then we're kind of delivering those to the body in a very targeted way. But really it's mimicking the light that we get from sunrise and sunset. So it's something that our bodies, you know, we have a lot of light receptors on our bodies for that reason. You know, we are animals. We're animals that used to live in the sun, and now we don't so often. So I think really that's the answer why we respond specifically to red light, because that's the light that we would have seen at sunrise and sunset.
Which unfortunately, because the pace of the lifestyle we're living right now, some people are not even getting exposed to the sun anymore. And you mentioned something very important. It's exposing ourselves to the sun has healing properties, but what about when we have some illness and we want to heal? I think that having such a concentrated light in a way that maybe we will never get by going outside and exposing ourselves to the sun for 10 hours, maybe we can get this in 10 minutes, right? Because it's more concentrated and potent what we can get, and more targeted. We know from athletes who use this therapy for for injuries, and now the beauty of this is, hey, we can use this also for our brain. And that's where you come in. And is that how this idea came about of creating your company and the device to target specifically the brain?
Yes, that was kind of my interest, and certainly I'm not going to claim that was my idea. Like I said, when I got into this field, there are a lot of brilliant researchers who were already doing some fabulous research into using targeted red light therapy for a brain health application. I think what I'm trying to do is deliver it in the best way possible that people can maximize the effect.
Okay.
And because of that, I started to look at other ways that we could maybe get light into the brain, because actually it's quite difficult to get light onto the surface of the brain.
I would think so.
I mean, when you think about it, we've got connective tissue, we've got the skull there.
Yes.
So, there are a few barriers. Hair, of course, and it does matter if you've got thick, dark hair to if you've got pale hair or no hair. And so from a point of view of having a device that's useful for everyone, and we know the dose, I was thinking, okay, we know we can get a little bit of light onto the surface of the brain, and we know that has an effect. The data is there.
Okay.
But also, how else could we deliver light that's going to have an impact on the brain? And so this device that I'm kind of developing here also has a gut panel, because we now know that there's a huge connection between the gut and the brain.
Yeah. Yes.
Also, the gut's accessible, right?
Yes.
You can get the light there easier,
Yeah.
There's a big surface area, there's a lot of blood there. We can get light maybe even as far as the microbiome.
Yeah.
And that's very interesting research. It's called photobiomics, a whole field of study about how your microbiome responds to light therapy.
Wow.
So from my point of view, it's like, okay, how can we maximize this effect? Sure, we can target the brain. So let's go in here where we've got no hair.
Yeah.
And we can just get light we can flush against the skin, because any distance away from a light source is going to affect the dose of light. So we can have light flush against the skin, and then we can maximize the effect by also targeting the gut.
Fascinating.
Yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at, where I'm thinking, okay, brilliant, let's do the transcranial red light therapy. We know that works. Let's also it's called a systemic effect. You can shine light on one part of the body and it's going to affect a different part of the body, because mitochondria are mobile. We know they're free floating in the blood.
Yes.
The bacteria, we know, is sending messages via the vagus nerve and via the blood to the brain. And like I say, there's not a day that doesn't go past on LinkedIn where I don't see another condition linked to the gut.
Of course. And I think that every chronic illness has to, in some way, linked to a gut that is unhealed. And,
that's what, I think the importance of that is really only just starting to come out. The importance of really, if you want to heal your brain or really any kind of chronic illness, you have to think holistically.
Yes.
And you really do have to think about the body as an integrated system.
Yeah.
And one of the most fundamental aspects of that system is the gut. So the gut is it really is like a second brain.
I was going to say, it's our second brain. And so many people think, or they're like, oh, our second brain, what is that? But in reality, we create so many important hormones in our gut that are linked to our well-being, and people are not really paying attention, but sometimes they don't know better. And that's the beauty of the work that we're doing. You individually, me, the Biohacking Congress, that we're trying to educate people to understand how they can biohack their own body.
And I think some people think it's a bit of a metaphor, because you have gut feelings, you have gut intuition.
Yes.
But actually the gut, it has neurons.
Yes.
It produces neurotransmitters, and in fact 90% of the neurotransmitters are made
in our gut.
It processes information.
Yes.
And there is a connection between the gut and the brain, which is the vagus nerve. But more of the messages are going from the gut to the brain than the other way around.
Absolutely.
So it really is a second brain.
Yeah, it is. It is.
And we really do need to think about, okay, if I want to kind of have the maximum effect, where do I start? What is the weakest link in the chain? And so I think target the gut first, get the integrity of the gut going, the microbiome, then you can start to look at all the other things that are going on with the body.
Yes.
But it's kind of an integral part. And I think from my point of view, this was my breakthrough for looking at how can we deliver the maximum dose of light to the brain is, okay, let's think a bit more holistically and do the gut, do the brain. Because the interesting thing about the brain is we can do other things with the light going onto the brain. Yeah. We can oscillate this light to kind of entrain brain waves, for example, which is a whole other field of study, hugely interesting. So maybe we'll use the photons that are getting onto the surface of the brain to maybe oscillate or pulse the frequency. We now know that gamma frequency has an effect, alpha frequency has an effect.
Yeah.
So we can do that with maybe like a headpiece. And then to get the maximum photons into the body, let's use another target, something more accessible.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so fascinating. And I am so intrigued for you to, and I'm looking forward to trying this and for you to explain how we can use the device. But before, and I know this changes because it's so individual from person to person, but what can a person using the device expect in terms of benefits or experiencing? How will they feel after?
Yeah, so as I mentioned to you before, there is no FDA classification for brain health.
Yeah.
So I will just put that out there that, you know, we can't make claims for things like neurodegeneration, although if people look through the data, they can see that, you know, there is some huge, interesting research that's happening there. So, but we can say we're taking people from a baseline of where they are to better, right?
Yes.
So things like memory, focus, concentration, maybe the most important thing, sleep. You know, we all know how important sleep is.
You said the magic word. The magic word, sleep.
Sleep, because all kinds of things are happening in your sleep, right?
Yes.
Things like lymphatic drainage, you know, how is the brain actually flushing and removing all of that? It's an active process. You know, I think that's what people, you know, think, oh, I'm so tired, I'm just going to crash out. Well, actually, in order to get really good sleep, you need energy.
100%.
You need energy. So things like giving the brain energy, in the, you know, the red light is going to give energy in the form of ATP, increased blood flow, more oxygenation. So I think one of the main things that people may experience when they start to use these kinds of devices is better sleep. Oh, wow. So longer sleep and better quality sleep.
Yeah. I'm sold.
Yes.
Like you said the magic word. I mean, one of my main things that I'm focusing on when it comes to the work that I'm doing with brain health is sleep optimization.
Right.
And that came out of my own pain because I suffer from insomnia for a long time.
Okay.
And it was affecting my brain and the way I showed up in the world. Who can function being sleep deprived? And we are in a society that it's even glamorizing the lack of sleep, and I'll sleep when I die, and the hustle culture.
Yes,
And unfortunately, we don't know the effect of how much it damages our brain when we don't sleep well, quality of sleep. So it's great that we can also use devices like this in the cases of people like me that were not necessarily willingly sacrificing the sleep. It's just that I had issues since I was in high school. So if I go and then use this, how do we go about? How do I use it? How do we start? Can you show us?
Yeah, sure. I'll show you. I'll do a one-handed demonstration while I'm holding the microphone.
If I can hold the microphone for you.
Okay. So this is the headpiece. Now, as I said, what we're doing with this is we are getting photons onto the brain, but we're using 4 wavelengths of light. Okay. And this has 4 different light clusters, and each of those clusters is going to have the red light, so we're going to get the blood, and we're also going to have near infrared light because we know that's received by the mitochondria, give more energy. And then I also have long wave red, which potentially can structure the water in the brain, which is a whole other topic. But, you know, basically there are lots of different ways that the brain is utilizing the light to have this therapeutic effect. We can oscillate that light. You know, we can do a pulse thing because we have in this particular device, we have an app that allows you to select the program. Wonderful. Yeah, so you can select from 6 different programs depending what your goal is for the particular session. And then this is the light panel for the gut. So very simple. You know, I've deliberately kept this very simple. It's a material pad, very comfortable. You can see, you can kind of attach it. I wanted to take away any of the barriers for use. Yeah. So, you know, like people, you know, it's not mains connected. It has a totally EMF shielded battery. You can walk around the house. You can do whatever you need to do. You can even sit and watch telly. Red and near infrared light. So this just goes straight across the abdomen. And it's just a 10-minute session. Because 10 minutes gives a dose of red light. So 10 minutes is going to give around about 30 joules per centimetre squared. So we know from the research that that's a decent dose of light. And that really is as simple as it is. And then 3 to 5 times a week, people can kind of build up gradually. You know, it really depends where you're at.
Yeah.
Because this is the other thing about people say to me, right, what's the exact protocol? But it's quite individualized.
Yeah.
So the sicker you are, or the kind of more depleted you are,
I was going to say,
then the less your body can, take the light, because you need to build up those receptors in the body.
like, for example, somebody like my mom that it's already experiencing cognitive decline, it wouldn't be the same, for example, if I start doing it. Like, she might need more.
She might need a little bit less.
Or less.
She might need a little bit less because her mitochondria maybe not, functioning optimally. We need to get those mitochondria going. Because remember, a lot of the light receivers, especially for the infrared, are in the membrane of the mitochondria.
Yes.
So it's a bit like exercise, you build up the muscle. So if you have someone who hasn't been to the gym for 10 years, they're going to need to do less weight training than someone who goes every day. Until they build up the muscle, or in the case of light, until you build up the mitochondria and the enzymes in the mitochondria, then you can start to use it more. So my idea is, I'll have a coaching program on the website. People who have videos, they can go through, they can work out what's a good dose for them.
Yes.
And then a lot of it is, self-experimentation. We're biohackers.
Yes.
We're biohackers. So, you use the light, you see how you feel, you can start to build up gradually.
Yes.
But there's no known side effects of red light.
Okay.
Out of all the documented studies, no one's ever OD'd on red light. That's not a thing.
We haven't heard of any. And one quick last question. With all these devices, a common question is EMFs.
Yes.
What about you took that in consideration? What is the emission? Is it minimal?
So this is very low EMF emission, and actually when I gave the spec to the engineers, I gave them like a cornet, it's like, okay, we need to be on green all the time.
Yes.
And so fine, that's gone in the specification of actually designing this kit. Also, Bluetooth is a concern for people having it on their head. So it is an app controlled device. So you can select your app. But then if you see here on the top, I have like a little toggle switch.
Yeah.
That cuts all Bluetooth going in and out.
Okay.
So the idea is you can select your app. You might want to do meditation, which is oscillating at a high frequency. You can disable the Bluetooth. So we have very low EMF, no Bluetooth, safe to put on your head.
Good.
Certainly that was one of my considerations.
Yes.
Because we don't want to do any harm.
It would defeat
we only
the
want the
purpose.
healing frequencies.
Yes.
So that's the idea, is that you only get the healing red light frequencies. You're not getting anything else. Yeah. And that's another reason why I didn't want it to be connected to the main supply.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes so much sense. Thank you so much for sharing all of this with us. I know that it's such an interesting topic, and the fact that you created something that we can have at home and start doing our healing and feel like we're not spending our life savings, and it's something accessible. I feel that more people should know about this and take advantage of the wonderful work that you already did with it, and all the research that you've put into creating this device. But we'll certainly talk more about it. I want to ask you a final question, because you're in Miami, and I don't know if you've had the chance to try any local Latino food that you already love or you're looking forward to try.
We're in Miami. We're kind of like tourists here, so we're hitting the tourist spots. So I'm probably going to say somewhere, and you're going to go, "Oh no, that's because we went to Havana 1957, which was obviously on Ocean Drive, very touristy.
It is
Cuban food. Which was obvious. It was totally delicious, but I'm aware that it may not be so authentic and traditional. But yeah, I mean, we had a lovely time. They were doing salsa dancing. We got involved with that. Yeah.
We love a good dancing for brain health. I mean, that is,
of course,
like
movement therapy.
Of course.
But, it's such wonderful music, and, I'm here with my team, and we all went there, and, we had a fabulous, fabulous time.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sarah. I mean, I hope this is not the last time you are in Miami. Certainly, We will be connected. I want to support you and the work that you're doing. But thank you so much for doing this. And I hope you listening to this or watching this got something that you can start implementing at home. And if you have more questions, where can they go and find you?
So yes, the website is CeraThrive. So that's CERA, CeraThrive.com. And then all my handles are that on LinkedIn, Instagram, the whole thing. Or I'm Sarah Turner, and I am very approachable. So Sarah at CeraThrive.com. And I answer everything myself. It's kind of just me on the end of the email. So yeah, I'm very happy for anyone's questions.
Wonderful. My name is Candy Calderon. You can also find me on social media, Candy Calderon _. I'm the founder of CEO Wellness Club. Thank you so much for tuning in.